Calling the regular meeting of the Coburg Council for January 30th, 2017 to order. And as we usually do, I ask everyone to take a few minutes to reflect on something that's important. And with so much turmoil in the world today, and of course close to home now in Quebec as recently as yesterday, I think we all have something we should be reflecting on. So please join me. Thank you. You may be seated. I'll begin the meeting by asking Deputy Mayor Henderson if there are any additions to the agenda.
Mayor Brock. Sorry, members of council, there are no additions to the agenda.
Okay. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council tonight? Seeing none, then we can proceed. Mr. Davey.
The first item on the agenda tonight is the adoption of minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 9, 2017.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Rowden. Discussion? All in favor? It is carried. Next item of business, Mr. Davey.
Your Worship, the next item of business is the declaration of office from Councillor Sagan.
Deputy Mayor Henderson, you have a motion first.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Municipal Clerk on behalf of the Striking Committee regarding the appointment of an eligible elector to fill the vacant councillor position for the Town of Coburg as recommended by the Striking Committee, Mayor Brockenier, Deputy Mayor Henderson, and Councillor Darling. And whereas Larry Sherman resigned as a councillor for the Town of Coburg effective December the 12th, 2016. And whereas council accepted the resignation with regret and declared the council seat vacant at the regular council meeting of December 12th, 2016. And whereas the Striking Committee of Council made up of Mayor Brockenier, Deputy Mayor Henderson, and Councillor Darling met to consider the options to proceed to initiate the process for filling the vacancy on municipal council pursuant to Section 263, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act 2001. And whereas it is deemed expedient to appoint an eligible elector to fill the vacancy through the established process pursuant to Section 263 of the Municipal Act 2001, and through the established process as outlined in the appointment procedure to fill a vacancy on municipal council policy LEG-OPS 7. And whereas the municipal council posted the vacancy notice on the municipal website in the local newspaper for at least 2 consecutive weeks after the vacancy was officially declared on December 12th, 2016. Now therefore be it resolved that council appoints Suzanne Seguin to fill the vacant councillor seat for the Corporation of Town of Coburg effective January 30th, 2017.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? And it is carried. Mr. Davey?
Your Worship, now it would be in order for the declaration of office.
Would you come forward, please, Suzanne? And we will begin the swearing-in ceremony. Do we want? Oh, I'll come down, absolutely. Yeah.
I Suzanne Seguin, having been elected or appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality of the town of Coburg, do solemnly promise and declare that 1. I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. 2. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. 3. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. 4. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Congratulations, Councillor Seguin.
Thank you.
Before we proceed any further, Mr. Davey, I would just ask Councillor Seguin if she has any declarations of interest now that she's an official member of council and knowing the agenda.
No, I do not. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. And I would just like to comment on Councillor Seguin's appointment and the process we used, because I've had lots of feedback from members of the public, both on the process we've used and the final selection. And I can tell you it is, the process we used has been without any criticism at all. If anything, it's been supported by a lot of commendations from everyone I've talked to. And I have not had anyone that didn't tell me they thought that Councillor Seguin was the best choice for all the candidates that stepped forward. So, again, a very ringing endorsement for you to start off your political career here in Coburg, Councillor Seguin, and we very much look forward to working with you for the next 2 years.
Your Worship, the next item on the agenda is a motion to appoint and assign council members for the town of Coburg to various coordinator responsibilities and representations on various municipal advisory and local board committees.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the duly elected 2014-28 Council of the Town of Coburg will be assigned various coordinator responsibilities. It will also represent the Council on advisory committees and local boards. Now therefore be it resolved that the following Coburg Municipal Council appointments be adopted. Under Council Coordinators, Economic Development, Mayor Brockenier. Under General Government Services, Deputy Mayor Henderson. Under Parks and Recreation Services, Councillor Darling. Under Public Works Service, Councillor Rowden. Under Protection Services, Councillor McCarthy. Under Planning Services, Councillor Burkett. And under Community Services, Councillor Seguin. And I'll work on that. I apologize. I got it? The only noted change in the details for council and media information, under the Coburg Water Quality Committee, we reduced that from 2 members down to 1 member, which stays with Councillor Rowden. We felt with the new established Parks and Recreation, Culture, Tourism Department, we no longer needed a senior liaison because they have direct contact now with the coordinator as well as the counselor. Other than the major flip of portfolios between protection and community services, at this point the roles remain in fact identical. I believe that speaks, Your Worship, to all the points before this motion.
Deputy Mayor Henderson, was that motion moved and seconded? Okay, then any discussion? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to point out that it's not an entire flip. I will be staying with Accessibility Advisory Committee, and because the Ontario Winter Games are in a few weeks, I'll finish that commitment. But I forgot, because there were a lot of projects, but I just want to note to Councillor Séguin that there is the Coburg Waterfront Festival Committee, and they start meeting monthly through to August, so that will be another piece.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? And it's carried.
Your Worship, the next motion is a motion to appoint Councillor McCarthy as a full voting member of the Joint Animal Control Board representing the Council of the Town of Coburg.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas Council has considered a motion to appoint Councillor Deborah McCarthy as a full voting member of the Joint Animal Control Board, known as JACB, representing the Council of the Town of Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Councillor Deborah McCarthy be appointed as the Town of Coburg Council representative and a full voting member on the Joint Animal Control Board to fill the vacancy resulting from the resignation of Larry Sherwin, former council member.
Okay, moved and seconded. And I've been filling in for the absence of Councillor Larry Sherwin. I've had several meetings with this committee, and I did advise them that Councillor McCarthy would now be taking over and attending the meeting, so I've asked them to make sure she's copied on all of their emails and correspondence that's going around. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And Your Worship, the next motion is to appoint Councillor McCarthy as a full voting member of the Police Services Board representing the Council of the Town of Coburg.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson again.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas Council has considered a motion to appoint Councillor Deborah McCarthy as a Coburg Police Services Board member representing the Council of the Town of Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Councillor Deborah McCarthy be appointed as the Town of Coburg Council representative and a full voting member on the Coburg Police Services Board to fill the vacancy resulting from the resignation of Larry Sherwin, former council member.
Okay. And again, we had our Police Services Board last week, and I did advise the board that Councillor McCarthy would be joining us as a council representative on the board, and very excited to do so because I have had a conversation with her about this change in roles. And then I do believe that Councillor McCarthy did send a letter, an email out to the board chair and the chief of police, and just introducing herself and also telling them that she was looking forward to it. So any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And Your Worship, the next motion is to appoint Councillor Séguin as a full voting member of the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas Council has considered a motion to appoint Councillor Suzanne Séguin as a Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board, DBIA member. Now therefore be it resolved that Councillor Suzanne Séguin be appointed as the Town of Coburg representative and a full voting member on the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area Board, known as the DBIA, to replace the former council representative in accordance with the council coordinator alterations.
Okay, moved and seconded. And again, Councillor Séguin, I think this is a perfect fit for you. It's certainly a very, very important role with all the work that's being done in downtown Coburg right now, and you're very familiar with it, in your role on the marketing committee and the downtown coalition and economic development advisory committee. So I really look forward to the work that you're going to do and work along with the DBIA and Deputy Mayor Henderson in advancing the cause of the DBIA and the downtown. So, any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item is a presentation from Tracy West, Physician Recruiter, and Linda Nicol, Co-Chair of the West Northumberland Physician Recruitment Committee.
Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you.
And of course, Linda. Are you speaking, Linda, or is Tracy?
Yes,
or
I
both
am.
Of you?
Yeah, both of us.
You're both welcome to speak.
All right.
You come with good credentials.
Good evening, Mayor Brockenier and Coburg Council members. My name is Linda Nickel, and I am the co-chair of the West Northumberland Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee, and with me is Tracy West, our project manager and our part-time recruiter. Today we will provide you with a brief update of our 2016 recruitment activities, and will request your ongoing funding of the committee in support of our 2017 activities. We'd like to thank Deputy Mayor John Henderson and Economic Development Affairs Officer Wendy Gibson for their efforts as the Town of Coburg's municipal representatives. Also, Linda Kay is a member of, is the Coburg community representative to our committee. Our committee's mandate is to attract new family physicians to the area and to lead the efforts in helpful in retaining our current physicians. We have a successful recruitment model based on cooperative team approach, including all 5 West Northumberland municipalities. Without this cooperative approach, recruitment would be much more difficult and more expensive for the municipalities. The committee is 100% funded by the West Northumberland municipalities, and it is a cost-effective model. And for those of you who have not heard this presentation before, I'd let you know that we are not a subcommittee of the hospital. We are an independent standing committee. Okay? The committee is made up of representatives of the municipal leaders and citizens. The biggest factor in our success is we have this dedicated recruitment committee along with the dedicated part-time recruiter. Tracy in particular has developed a relationship with our doctors such that they know they can discuss their retirement plans confidentially with her, and this usually gives us a lead time which will allow us to replace that doctor without having a disruption to their patients. And with that said, I'll turn the presentation over to Tracy, who will go through 2016.
Thank you very much, Linda. So the committee has many roles and responsibilities, but the most important is to successfully meet the primary healthcare needs of your residents. And we do this through a number of different ways. We identify and recruit family physicians that would be a good fit in our community. We lead efforts to retain the excellent family physicians that are working in our community right now. And we create succession plans for the retiring physicians to ensure continuity of care for all of their patients. So we pride ourselves on having a very comprehensive and thorough recruitment process. We go through many steps to ensure that the fit is right, that the doctor is the right fit for the community, and that the community is the right fit for the doctor. And because of this, we have very high retention rates. And this is very important. So if we bring in doctors who are going to put down roots for life, then we're not on a treadmill of having to replace those doctors every 2 and 3 years. And for a patient's perspective, they've got a continuity of care with that same family physician, and in some cases up to 40 years in our community, which is huge. So in 2016, we successfully recruited 2 new family physicians into the Port Hope community. Dr. Everdale replaced Dr. Routh, who retired in June, and Dr. Northay replaced Dr. Levinson, who left his practice just 2 weeks ago. So our committee ensured the continuity of care for over 2,000 residents who were the patients of those 2 departing family physicians. So other key accomplishments in 2016, we are doing ongoing succession planning for retiring doctors. We execute a successful Doctor Appreciation Week, the first week of May every year. And this is part of our retention strategy. And this is a grassroots effort where we are just asking the residents to say thank you to their doctors. We also in June host an event where we bring in the doctors and just say thank you. And a lot of you have been to that event before, and I know it's well appreciated. We have medical students and medical residents that are hosted in this community. Many of our family physicians are educating these medical students and residents, and this allows an opportunity to not only showcase our community, but also showcase the practice opportunities here. And we have been successful in recruiting at least a couple of those residents to stay in our community. We organize community tours for prospective physicians, and these days I'm busy doing that. We also completed a governance review this fall to ensure that our terms of reference and our policies and procedures are up to date. So in looking ahead, with a dedicated recruitment committee in place, your municipality is well positioned to meet the future healthcare needs of your residents. While we move forward with recruiting, we're certainly aware of the challenges. Our biggest challenge is keeping pace with the retirement plans of our family doctors. Our physicians are aging along with our general population, and presently 30% of our physicians are over the age of 60 years old. We are actively recruiting on a continuous basis, and I am in contact with our local physicians on an ongoing basis with regards to their retirement plans so that we can have projections for future planning. While we have been replacing retiring doctors for a few years, the retirements are now coming at a quicker pace. We already have 4 retirements indicated for 2017 and early into 2018. The committee works with all of these doctors to ensure that a succession plan is in place. It sometimes can take up to 2 years to recruit a doctor, so planning is really imperative. And some of our other challenges are that overall the recruitment of family physicians in Ontario is still competitive. Another challenge is, as you all know, that the population of West Northumberland is one of the oldest in the province, and having an older population along with a growing population will increase the demand for family physician resources in our area. We also recognize that over the last year or so there's been a recognized increase in the number of residents looking for a family doctor. We want you to know that as a committee we are aware of that. The recruitment committee about a year ago launched an awareness campaign to help direct residents to Healthcare Connect if they're looking for a doctor. And Healthcare Connect is a government agency which helps to match a resident with a family doctor when a family doctor is looking at bringing on new patients. So we recognize along with you that ensuring access to a family doctor is not only a healthcare issue, but it's also an economic development issue. Changing practice lifestyles also mean that in the future we may have to recruit more than one doctor to replace each retiring physician. We haven't had to do that yet, but we absolutely know that the time is going to come for that very soon. Changing practice lifestyles also mean that newer physicians are interested in joining existing groups of doctors. They are not interested in starting alone in their own office space. So the lack of space within existing doctor's office in our communities has created recruitment challenges in the past and may also do so in the future. And lastly, the landscape of healthcare in our province is changing, and the Ministry of Health is entering into a period of primary care reform. And we don't know what that means yet, but currently the Ministry has put into place new rules regarding the setting up of practices for new doctors. So this just means that there's an added layer of complexity to the recruitment challenge, but I want you to know that these rules will not impact our replacement of any retiring doctors. So with the understanding that recruitment must continue, another big challenge is ensuring that there is future funding. In 2015, the Recruitment Committee prepared a 4-year operating budget. This 4-year strategy allowed for consistent municipal funding requests through to 2018. Our budget is fiscally responsible, and the funding request amounts are calculated on a population basis. Our committee is requesting funding of $17,100 towards the operational needs for 2017. The funding request is the same amount as last year, and it is less than $1 per resident.
Thank you. We'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation today. It is very clear that we must have our committee continue their work. And now I'd like to ask you if there's any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Linda and Tracy. I certainly appreciate the work you're doing. As you know, I was council's representative on the physician recruitment and retention team from 2006 to 2010. So I have an inside appreciation for the hard work that not only has been done, but has to be done, simply to keep us, make sure that we have enough doctors, a sufficient supply of doctors. And I do appreciate all the work that Deputy Mayor Henderson is putting into it as well. I know that he came forward with a budget amount, which all of council seemed to think was very, very reasonable and a good thing to support. So I'm now going to open it up to other members of council who may have some questions of clarity. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to say, Tracy, and Linda, that a great job you've been on in the past. I know, as the Mayor said, he's been on the committee before, and I was also on the committee back in 2003 to 2006. I know what a big job it is to try and get doctors. And visiting that hospital for 130 days last year to see my wife, I certainly appreciate the professionalism that not only the doctors but the nurses and everybody that works there.
Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to share with Council and affirm what was presented. I'm attending the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association conference, and there was a presentation, standing room only, by Michelle Hunter of the Rural Ontario Medical Program and the community rotation, meaning bringing the students into the communities, which is part of the recruitment process. And it is very competitive. I also know that at the moment we're in good shape, which is testimony to the work of the committee, but we cannot let go of this initiative because other communities are really going to up the ante to attract these doctors. So anyways, well done, and that's very much on the table of municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Seguin.
Linda or Tracy, as a fairly new member of the town of Coburg, we had difficulty finding a doctor. And do you have any stats? I know that you mentioned some of the doctors, and down the road there may take 2 to replace 1, because some doctors have up to 70 patients or more, or maybe even more than that. Do you have any numbers at all of how many people in Coburg, or if not Coburg, Northumberland, are still without a doctor?
So at this point, what we do is we're in constant communication with Healthcare Connect, and they provide us with statistics every month, which then I discuss with our committee. So actually, as of yesterday, there's 750 West Northumberland residents on Healthcare Connect.
Okay.
But what we do know is that there's many more residents that do not have a doctor in our community. So we know that there's many residents who live here, who have maybe moved from Toronto or other locations, who have kept their doctor in those locations. So the number is very difficult. We know that there's a firm 750, but we absolutely know that it's higher than that.
Just one follow-up, Your Worship.
Absolutely.
The new doctors that are coming in,
Yes.
is that part of the recruitment process, to let them know and ask them if they're willing to take on such a large load, given our demographics here in Coburg and Northumberland, a lot of older people, more problems. So is that a pushback at all from new doctors, that they're willing? Because I often see they've taken over a physician's office, but
Yes.
they're not really taking on new patients. Is that just to get acclimatized?
That's absolutely right. So when physicians take over a roster of patients, it does take them a little while to get to know those patients, and so they're not really interested right at the beginning to take on more patients until they've had a chance to meet all of those patients. So, but we are hoping, especially with the last couple of doctors who have come in, that after a certain period of time, that then we can work with them to take on more patients.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Well, I do have one, Tracy. It's something I've lost track of, because we had this discussion, I'm thinking going back 6 or 7 years ago, that municipalities are not allowed to bonus industry in order to come into their community. But some of the municipalities that were fairly flush with money were actually paying out cash dividends for doctors to locate in their community. And I know that there was a move afoot to try and put a stop to that, because it was considered to be the equivalent of bonusing, only in a different area. Did that ever come to fruition, or is there any movement still ongoing with that?
I know that that's still being done in some communities. It's certainly not a philosophy of our communities.
No, it isn't.
We would like to attract doctors who want to be here for our community and for the practice opportunities, and not coming for a certain amount of money. But I absolutely know that that's still happening in other communities. In fact, I was just reading a report in the news last week from the Madoc area that said that they've just attracted a doctor there with a 5-year return of service for $25,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's typical of what had been happening. So, thank you. If there are no other questions, and once again, Linda and Tracy, thank you very much for your presentation. And all I can say is keep up the good work. We know it's needed.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Your Worship, the next item on the agenda is under the heading of reports. Under Economic Development Services, there's a letter of resignation from George Lorenzik, Economic Development Advisory Committee member.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended, the council receive the letter of resignation with regret.
Seconder. Councillor Darling. And so that means we will now have 2 vacancies on economic development, because Councillor Seguin was on that committee as well as a member of the community. So, any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item under General Government Services is the Committee of the Whole meeting notes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
That council receive the notes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on January 23rd, 2017 for information purposes.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Burkett. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item is the Committee of the Whole 2017 budget meeting notes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that council receive the notes of the Committee of the Whole 2017 budget meeting held on January 24th, 2017 for information purposes.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Seguin. And of course, this is just a synopsis of all, the sequence of events that took place at the budget meeting on January the 24th. Any discussion on any of the notes? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, the next item is a memo from the Economic Development Officer regarding a referral network memorandum of understanding.
Deputy Mayor Henderson. I think we moved. You missed item number 3.
Yes, I was just going to.
Mr. Davey, you have something near and dear to your heart.
Yes, Your Worship. We can do that. It's a memo from myself regarding the 2017 Town of Coburg operating and capital budgets.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
That's what I was waiting for. The action recommended the council consider the proposed budget changes as outlined within the staff report, along with any additional items for consideration prior to approving the 2017 and operating and capital budgets.
Okay. So I need a seconder to get on the floor. So Councillor Rowden, and so now it's open for discussion. If there are any items that you're not quite sure of, please ask now. So I'm opening up the floor for questions or comments. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Davey, I thought I brought my change sheet with me. Do you have an additional one by chance? I have everything but the change items. Just, yeah. Thank you. I'll get it back to you. Just for council's information, we left the original budget discussion at 1.8, and we were asked through motion through myself to meet with the CEO, Stephen Peacock, our Director of Finance, Mr. Davey, we sat down and started to look at the budget items both under operating budget and capital budget that's before you. And we looked at these seriously based on where we were and what changes had taken place over the last week. And that's why in some cases you'll see pluses, in other cases you'll see minuses being identified. I'm happy to answer any specific questions, and I guess we all need direction either from His Worship or Mr. Davey. When we do this later on, do I make motions collectively, or do I have to make a motion for each item as we go through?
It does not require a motion for each item.
I'll be happy to take any questions. I know that council had these to them over the weekend, so they could see again which ones were being requested to be removed, which ones were being asked to be revised, which ones were asked to be reduced, and or which ones were coming from reserve. So again, I'll take any specific questions. If I can't answer them, I'll certainly direct them to Mr. Davey.
Okay, Councillor Rowden, you were first, then Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and the Chair on the budget. When we agreed to this reduction, and it's set at 1.5% then as our levy. That'll be the final, right? 1.5 plus the 0.9 for new assessment.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Rowden.
Yes.
What we're showing here is if Council accepts all the items that I've listed as proposed changes, then the overall municipal levy would increase by 2.4%. We have said that we have a factor of 0.9% as our new assessment growth, which would bring the net impact to the existing tax base at 1.5%.
Okay, Councillor McCarthy, you were next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Davey. The only one that I'm a little unsure of is the Coburg Heritage. It seems to be clarified because I did ask that in the budget discussions. Was the $7,000 for the historical educational video inside of Canada 150 allotment? And it appears it was not. But because there's no negative sign beside the $7,000, does that mean we are putting $7,000 in the budget for the educational video?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor McCarthy, yes, that's correct. So the effect of this adjustment was to take away the funding that we had initially thought was there from the Canada 150 committee. So the expenditure of the $7,000 stays in the budget. It's just that there's no offsetting funding.
Councillor Seguin.
Through you, Your Worship, actually to Mayor, Deputy Mayor John Henderson, to get up to speed with this tremendous important budget, once I got the link from Kara, I spent the weekend watching the video of the deliberations, and I've got to tell you, it's an amazing thing. I couldn't be here, unfortunately, but what a process to watch every member of this council go through and back and forth and great discussion, because this is an important part of the future and specifically this coming year. So kudos to everyone around this table for the amount of work and effort. The only comment I have is, and hopefully as this year progresses with the tremendous amount of work that's going to be done at the CCC to Director Husquick, we're hoping that next year's budget, the gap between the expenses and the revenue at the CCC gets a little closer. And that's, other than that, I fully agree with all the changes in and out, because having been part of the discussion, albeit off-site, I really admired the process as it went through there. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
And through Your Worship and to members of council, I thought personally council did a wonderful job, because we took each department and basically we went line by line other than identified salaries, and that's kudos to this council. But I must say, I went home and I looked at all my asterisk pages to make sure did we do the business before us. And I must apologize to you because in going through those close to whatever they are in the budget, we missed one item. And the one item I identified, and I did inform Director Huswick and Councillor Darling of this, in the budget was an item for a new full-time attendant. And we did not have that discussion on the floor. And I want to be clear to the public and to the media, this is not something I'm slipping in on a Monday night. It was there all the way along. It was before us. I'll take ownership of this being the chair. I just missed the item. So I do want to bring it to the floor today. I'd like Director Huswick, through his worship, to say a few words because it is a new position being requested. But I do want to make it clear it was in the budget all the way along. And I believe that's the only item that was not identified. Through you, Your Worship, if I could have Director Huswick or Councillor Darling speak to it.
Councillor Darling?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just before I get to that, I too would like to thank the Council for their hard work. I knew I was going to be away on vacation, which had been booked months before. Because of that, I sat in on just about every preliminary budget session, was well aware of what was going on. Very unfortunate that we got a little bit of a bump in the road with the reassessment from Impact, which affected our budget greatly. I reviewed the project cuts here and changes you've made, and I think my fellow councillors did a good job. And as for the extra parks, I'm not going to say extra, the new parks employee, I thought when I had left that had been discussed in the preliminary stages and the reasons for it had all been agreed on. And it comes as a bit of a shock, but I'll ask Director Huswick, because he had did all the legwork on it, to give an overview of it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Huswick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to discuss this. As I think everyone recognizes, the workload related to the significant number of parks throughout this community continues to grow. Just this year we've added, and in the process of adding, a second park related to Milestone. So that's a significant new area of parkland added to the community that is going to require additional maintenance work. So those types of additions continue. There's also the additions of new equipment. We added a new playground at Ashland Park, for instance, is just one example. So as new equipment and facilities are added, there's ongoing maintenance, and of course as equipment ages, it requires increased maintenance. Along with maintenance and evolving standards are new training requirements. So as staff are sent on training, that's additional backlog of work that others have to fulfill. But there's always new standards with the playground equipment and other types of facilities that staff have to continue to be trained on. As you know from ongoing telephone calls and inquiries and even some complaints, the maintenance expectations of our parks is very high throughout the community, and staff, I think, have done a remarkable job of maintaining the parks in that level of standard, especially certainly down at the waterfront in Victoria Park. In addition to that, the workload related to the events in this community, the number of events are increasing. The expectations and requests for park staff and other staff to support all of those activities is increasing significantly. There's dozens and dozens of events, and the vast majority of those events are actually taking place in our parks. So the park staff are continuing to support all of those events in terms of road closures and moving equipment and picnic tables and various other support on an ongoing basis. It's also, parks is a 7-day-a-week operation, which is somewhat unique within the municipality, but staff have to be on call the park staff actually also provide backup to Public Works. But because of a 7-day-a-week operation, it becomes a hectic scheduling process to have people that can only work so many hours, and but being able to provide that level of services right through the week, and especially on busy weekends throughout the year in the summer. So this particular position is being requested to address all of these needs, but specifically to help offset the casual hours and the overtime that are accruing in an increasing amount. So we're spending the money to address the needs. The intention is let's create a full-time position that'll then we can back off some of the overtime and additional casual hours. So I think much of it can be offset, but the needs and demands on our parks is going to continue, especially as we bring on some of these new things that I've mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Well, Your Worship, you might want to know further discussion if there is any, but if there isn't at some point, I would ask that Councillor Darling, since he's here and he's coordinator, if he would make a motion on that one in particular.
Okay.
Because it's not on our list.
Okay, Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship. And if I may just add to Mr. Hustwick, we've had the same number of parks employees for many, many years. Every year we get students that come in and help with the overload during the summer months when the students are off. But the amount of work that's still there in early spring and late fall, before the students are out of school and after the students go back, is still a fair amount of grass cutting and gardening and work that has to be done. And there just is not enough staff for the number of parks we have. And I'd just like to add that. And I'd be more than happy to make a motion at this time that we add one more park staff to this year's budget for a full-time complement.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Seguin. Further discussion? I'd just like to say that you're absolutely right. If you think about it, in less than 12 months, we have we're taking over two brand new parks. And so there's Milestone, and then of course the one that it's in New Amherst that we'll be taking tonight. So we were adding significantly, to our inventory of parks. There's another one up in the St. Mary's subdivision we're taking over as well. So there's no doubt that there's going to be a growing demand for the services in all of those parks, and we have to make sure that we come up to not necessarily the public's expectations as our own expectations, because there's sometimes a difference between what the public wants and what really the parks are intended to be. So I fully support that. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And Your Worship, just looking for direction, is this the appropriate time for me to make a motion and accepting the changes?
Yes.
Okay. In my position as Deputy Mayor, the motion will be, I'm requesting that Council accept the operating and capital budget revisions as presented. I'm looking for the date here, sorry. January 30th.
Yes. Okay. And I'm looking for a second. Pardon? Oh, okay. Seconded. Oh, Councilor Rodnody, second. But is that with the addition? So we've got a separate addition. We've got an addition to the budget from Councillor Darling, and now we have Deputy Mayor Henderson putting a motion forward to approve the total budget. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. And so I just have to ask Councillor Rowden, you were the seconder, and you stand by that addition. Okay. Councillor Seguin, do you have a comment or a question?
Just a point of clarification. You just said addition, but Councillor Darling did mention that extra position had been in the budget all along, correct?
Yes, it was.
So the actual net of the 1.5 will stay the same with the changes that you recommended. Thank you.
Yeah. So it was just something that Councillor Seguin, it was something that got overlooked, and we didn't talk about the detail, even though it was included in the overall budget process. So we're now making a clarification just so that people don't think it's something we've slipped in at the last minute, trying to add staff without being transparent. Okay. All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, I believe that now is the memo from the Economic Development Officer regarding a referral network memorandum of understanding.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Henderson again.
That council receive the report for information.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Darling. Any discussion on this? This is something that certainly we've been working with the county, the Business Advisory Center, CFDC, Northumberland Manufacturing Association, and the county. And so we are progressing in our talks, and that's why we want to be able to move forward with a memorandum of understanding to talk further with the county. I've had some discussions with the chair of the CFDC, very much in support of it. So I think it's something that we should pursue going forward, to have an economic development hub. It'll be like one-stop shopping, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to not just to the town of Coburg, but to Northumberland as well. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, is that going to be at 600 William Street, then, that new office?
The intent is to have that located at 600 William Street. As you know, as we all know, the United Way is moving out, and of course that creates some extra space up there, which will allow us to put everybody in one spot. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, moving to Parks and Recreation Services, we have a memo from the Manager of Parks and the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture regarding the awarding of the waterfront user needs assessment and detailed project design.
Okay, Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship, the action recommended here is that Council authorize the award of the waterfront user needs assessment and detailed project design to Think Design at a cost of $74,925.
Okay, and the memo was attached. If members of council have any comments, questions, please direct them either to Councillor Darling or Mr. Hustler. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to tie up a loose end right now from June 2015, the Tourism Asset Feasibility Study. And I promised that I would come back with that at the right time once the public engagement policy was completed, the downtown master plan was completed, the heritage master plan was completed. And it has kind of stayed with Downtown Coalition Advisory as unfinished business. And I thought I could make a motion, but I don't think I need it. All I would like to say is that when the consultants begin this work, that they at least look at this research. There are no promises made, but the work was completed. There's a conceptual idea there, and therefore the coalition can let go of that project and know that, yay or nay, it will be considered in this waterfront plan. Is that a good idea, perhaps?
Go ahead, Councillor Darling.
Yes, it's a good idea. It's my understanding that all past studies and everything is going to be taken into consideration. The consultants have looked at them and will be compiling them all to come up with one master plan that we are going to implement and not just talk about. I can ask Director Hustwick if he has anything to add.
Just before Mr. Hustwick speaks, I don't think I got a seconder for that motion. Oh, Councillor Seguin. Okay, we now have one. Go ahead, Mr. Hustwick.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Just to support Councillor Darling's comments, the intention is to look at the entire waterfront area. The consultants that are being recommended actually already came into town and looked through a lot of the documentation, and their proposal includes detailed discussions with stakeholders. So this is a user needs assessment. We'll be ensuring that all aspects of the community and advisory groups as well have an opportunity to contribute to the work that the consultants are doing. So I think the campground certainly be part of the discussion, and it's obviously an important part of the waterfront. And just to add, I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to bring this memo to council tonight. This is the first significant, tangible step in the implementation of the Parks Master Plan, Phase 1 as we had called it, and there's been a lot of work done to get the RFP out. These two proposals were both very, very solid, very experienced teams included in both submissions, and but the one group that is being recommended outscored the other one. But we're excited to get this started and start the consultation and begin this phase of implementation of the Parks Master Plan.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Seguin.
Through you, Your Worship, to Director Huswick, the amount of the consultation plan, do you have any ETA as to how long you've given them to complete that? And secondary question, will there be some budget amounts for each portion of the plan that they put forward to bring to council, or will it just be a conceptual plan?
Go ahead, Mr. Huston.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Seguin. The full project will likely be completed towards the end of the summer. That's the tentative deadline. Consultations, I believe, are probably about 6 to 8 weeks at the front end. And I'm sorry, I lost the second part of cost estimates. Yes,
the cost estimates.
Sorry about that. It does include, and we were very careful in terms of how the RFP was written, though. We really wanted clear designs and very, as detailed as possible construction estimates on all of those phases. So the consultants that are being recommended, both submissions included cost estimates. I think the one that we're recommending is probably going to have a little bit more detailed cost estimates. Think Design actually did Kingston's waterfront master plan, which is was very, very complex because of the amount of parks and waterfront that they had, and they are proposing to actually break down all of the various steps and with a construction schedule as well over a number of years based on the discussions and the feedback and likely budgets and things like that. So we expect to have some very usable information to help with the budget process over many years.
Go ahead.
One follow-up. The two finalists, I guess, for this, there's not much of a difference, but in your notes you mentioned that one had more of a public consultation component. Do you know yet now how many public meetings there will be for this particular project?
Go ahead. Through you, Your Worship, I can't recall the exact number because there's different phases, and I believe there are proposed four, again, subject to discussions with the steering committee and staff, but I believe they proposed 4 public meetings, which was more than the other submission. I believe there was 21 individual stakeholder meetings, in addition to other meetings with staff and the steering committee. So quite extensive. They actually brought on a communications firm as part of their team. And while there were differences, I mean, they were both very solid submissions. This one certainly put a little more emphasis into that level of consultation. We thought it was really important to have as many one-on-ones as possible. And there were differences in terms of hourly costs and the number of hours of actual work that we were getting out of, would be getting out of the recommended proponents. And even though it's about $3,000 or $4,000, I guess, $3,000 or $4,000 more, the amount of work we felt was going to be superior.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Any other discussion? I know that the public as a whole is very much looking forward to this study as well. I get questions on it quite frequently, so I'm glad to see that we're moving ahead on it. All in favor of the motion? And it's carried.
Your Worship, moving to Planning and Development, Services, there's a memo from the manager of planning regarding the accessory dwelling units, second units addendum to the planning report dated January 13th, 2017.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended is that council adopt the bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 85-2003 as amended, addressing the province's direction in permit to permit the use of a secondary or accessory dwelling unit in a single detached, semi-detached, or town or row townhouse dwelling, or within a detached coach house where no second unit is present.
Okay, and seconder for that, Councillor Rowden. And so we did have the public meeting last week. There were a few comments from the public that have been addressed by Mr. McGlashan, and so we will now be moving this forward to the bylaw, and there will be an opportunity, certainly at the second reading of the bylaw, for any comments and questions. So any discussion at this point, moving it forward? Councillor Rowden.
Yeah, just a quick question for Mr. McGlashan here in regards to the parking. We ran into this problem on Paul Street and then discovered there was rental units there. What will we have in place to control street parking in the case of past things that happened that there is no parking on their property?
Go ahead, Mr. McGlashan.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. Through you to Councillor Rowden. There certainly will be circumstances where parking cannot be provided on the property in question, proposing the secondary unit, in which case they would not be allowed to have that second unit. So there are some check mechanisms in place that would prevent new units without proper parking on street on site parking. So the spillover onto adjacent streets hopefully would be avoided that way. Obviously, if there are existing residential units, whether they are legal or not, we will certainly have to determine whether they comply with the provisions, and if there is overflow on street parking, we'll have to certainly address those matters as they come. But as we proposed in areas around the core, within approximately a 1 kilometer radius around the core, we figure there are a lot of smaller lots, narrower lots, and they are certainly not conducive to creating secondary or double-wide driveways. So we thought that might be a very appropriate kind of a trial case where we can look at allowing tandem spaces on properties that way, and certainly makes them a little more walkable to the downtown, and of course more conducive to being affordable as well.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Through your worship, Director McGlashan, do you feel that perhaps a year from now or a year and a bit you would be able to bring back an annual report to this council or a summary just to say how well is this working?
Go ahead.
Yes, through your worship, yes, we certainly can do that. It's our intent to continually monitor the program. I was mentioning to one of the presenters at the public meeting that it will be an evolutionary process. It'll be a learning experience for everyone, and I think with the register we'll be able to identify the number of new secondary units that are implemented, and as well determine our own best practices. Are there areas that can be improved? Maybe some tweaks to the bylaw within that year or two. So yes, we will certainly ourselves, we are planning to monitor it, but we can certainly provide council with a status report on an annual basis.
So, Mr. McGlashan, you're already publishing a monthly building report which identifies commercial, residential, and so on. Will accessory uses be a separate line item on there so that when the report goes out to council on a monthly basis, we'll be able to see just how many there are monthly as well as year-to-date?
Yes, Your Worship, we can certainly add a separate line item for accessory units that are created. We do have that capability.
Good, great. That will keep council informed. Thank you. Any other discussion on moving this forward to a bylaw? Councillor Darling.
Yes, again, for Mr. McGlashan, I think we discussed this before, but I just wanted to confirm. that this was a proposal that was recommended by the province to provide affordable housing, and we're just following in step for those reasons. And there's been many proponents out there who have been waiting some time for this bylaw to come forward. Is that correct? Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Yes, it is certainly part of the province's affordable housing strategy, which has actually been in place for approximately 6 years. The Planning Act changes that came into effect to permit secondary or accessory units has been in place for 4 years. And the minister's recent directive was essentially, we've had 4 years, we need to get this rolling in more municipalities in the province. So, yes, it is directly related to the province's recent directive, but we had it on our radar for at least the last 3 or 4 years.
Very good. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Through your worship to Director McGlashan, my sense is that council will approve this tonight. And with this approval, at that point, would you then, I'm just asking because I'm not sure, write a summary letter to our MP and to the minister and to Northumberland County that we are in compliance and we are moving forward with such a bylaw?
Go ahead, Mr. McGlashan.
Yes, Your Worship, through you, yes, we will be providing official notice to the minister, and we can certainly extend that to the MPP and the county as well. In fact, the county, we've been in consultation with them as well prior to this, and they are certainly supportive.
Very good. No further discussion. Moved and seconded. All in favor? It's carried. Your Worship, that will take us to motions. Okay. First motion is under Economic Development Services. Deputy Mayor Henderson, you're first.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas Council's considered a memo from the Economic Development Officer regarding a referral network memorandum of understanding. Now therefore be it resolved that Council authorize the signing of the attached memorandum of understanding between the Town of Coburg and participating business support services providing the Local Employment Planning Council, LEPC catchment area, Northumberland County, Peterborough City and County, City of Kawartha Lakes, and Halliburton County.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. And still with general government. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered the 2017 wastewater budget recommendations as presented by the Treasurer, Director of Corporate Services at the special budget meeting held on January 24th, 2017. Now therefore be resolved that Council approve the 2017 operating budget for wastewater services for the Town of Coburg, indicating total revenue of $5,524,172 and a total expenditure of $3,406,504, resulting in a net operating surplus of $2,117,668, which will be transferred to the sewer rate reserves attached hereto as Appendix A. And further be it resolved that Council approve the 2017 capital budget for wastewater services for the Town of Coburg in the amount of $1,395,000 as outlined in the summary report attached hereto as Appendix B.
Okay, moved and seconded, and as everybody knows, it's a full cost recovery system. We did give it a review during the budget deliberations on the 24th of January. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas Council received the Committee of the Whole Budget Review Meeting Report of January 24th, 2017, recorded by the Deputy Clerk for information purposes at the regular Council meeting of January 30th, 2017. And whereas the regular Council meeting has considered a report from the Treasurer Director of Corporate Services regarding adjustments made to the 2017 operating and capital budgets. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the report for information purposes and approve the 2017 capital budget in the amount of $6,289,250. Further be it resolved that council approve the 2017 operating budget with a municipal levy of $22,634,551, which represents a 2.4% increase over the 2016 operating budget and a 1.5 net increase after allowing for new assessment growth of 0.9%, as shown in the summary pages attached hereto. And further be it resolved that council directs staff to prepare a 2017 tax rate bylaw for presentation to council once the county of Northumberland have finalized their budget and the province of Ontario have provided the 2017 education tax rates.
Okay, and was that, did I miss the seconder on that, Deputy Mayor Henderson?
Councillor Darling?
Councillor Darling, okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Well, first, the only apology I'm going to make is to John Draper, because we did cancel the chair replacement out here in the council chambers, and I did make a commitment that, you know, John, being a regular member of the media here, has to sit in a hard chair all the time. So I will make arrangements that you have something more appropriate, John. Even though we're not going to upgrade the rest of the room, I think you deserve at least because you're here every meeting. Yeah, you deserve something equal to the rest of them. So, but I would like to just make a comment that again, I know how much work goes into this budget. A lot of work goes into it by staff, by Deputy Mayor Henderson himself and the CAO, along with the finance department. And I really do appreciate the fact that all of council does such great diligence in going through the budget, not only for their own respective coordinator roles, but for the entire budget. And so I can only say that thank you to Deputy Mayor Henderson for the work you put into it, and also Mr. Davey, to you and your staff, much appreciated. And I think we've come up with something that certainly the public can really accept. And we will continue to be delivering a high level of service without overtaxing the public. And that's very, very important. Value for service. Any other discussion, comments? All in favor? And it's carried.
Your Worship,
Go ahead.
Can I continue, or?
Pardon? Yeah, you
Okay,
continue.
thank you.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Henderson, please
Okay,
continue.
thank you. I'm just waiting for direction. Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Bylaw Enforcement Policy Coordinator regarding a bylaw enforcement strategy for the town of Coburg. Now therefore be resolved that Council endorse the recommendations in the Bylaw Enforcement Strategy Report and support the implementation of Option 2, consisting of a combination of an in-house part-time municipal bylaw enforcement officer and services provided through the existing bylaw enforcement contract, as presented in the staff report, to contribute directly to the town's goal of creating a healthy and safe community that positively affects quality of life for residents through improving efficiencies and effectiveness in municipal operations.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And Deputy Mayor Henderson again.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered the proposed 2017 budget from the Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area, Coburg DBIA, now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the 2017 Coburg Downtown Business Improvement Area budget as presented. And I believe that our new councillor has a copy of that tonight.
Yes.
And if you don't, please let us know.
And there was a bit of an update that came through in the form of an email today, not changing it dramatically, but we're in a role of just approving it. They set their own budget, and we approve it.
And if I can speak to that, Your Worship, one of the, I forget who
Certainly.
requested it, I believe it was Mr. Davey himself, or it could have been another councillor, that there were 10 identified items, and it was asked to resend the DBIA budget to speak to those 10 items, and they have been so identified by Mr. Treluso, who is our finance board director. So the request was made, and do you have a copy, Councillor? Well, we'll make sure you get one if you don't
Yes.
have one.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Just on that note, Councillor Seguin, are you now on the town website email listing? Do you know? Well, you are. Okay. Well, that makes it easier for everyone to contact you now. Thank you. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor of the DBIA budget? Thank you. All carried. And one final one, Deputy Mayor Henderson, for
Yes, thank you.
one resolution.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a letter from Len Dolan, AMO President, seeking a resolution in support of closing the municipal fiscal gap, including a motion of support from the County of Northumberland. And whereas County agreed to pass a resolution in support of closing the municipal fiscal gap, What's Next Ontario, as requested by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And whereas municipal government's infrastructure is critical to our collective economic health, and whereas stable, predictable, and formula-based infrastructure funding allows municipal governments to plan and schedule investments in infrastructure, and whereas Ontario municipal governments have asset management plans which set out a municipal's longer-term capital plan which reflects the infrastructure priorities of these asset management plans, and whereas a federal incrementally rule interferes with municipal long-term infrastructure priorities and diminishes the value of municipal asset planning and management. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Corporation of the Town of Coburg calls on the federal government to provide long-term, predictable, and formula-based funding in its Phase 2 programs for municipal governments. And further, that the Corporation of the Town of Coburg calls on the federal government to change incremental requirements in Phase 2 to recognize in Ontario that municipal government's asset management plans meets a municipal incremental infrastructure requirement.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Discussion on this one. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and I understand that there may have been an announcement the other day in regards to our gas tax that may be doubling in the future. That's a good news story, and let's hope we can get the feds to come forward and probably do the same thing.
Yeah. There's no doubt there's a huge infrastructure financial gap in all of Ontario, and more importantly, and from my experience as warden of Eastern Ontario, it's even more compelling story in Eastern Ontario because we have a more rural population, and if you take a look at some of the larger communities throughout Ontario, they'll have as many as 75, 80 taxpayers per square kilometer, and then once you get out into Eastern Ontario, you're looking at an average of 5 taxpayers per square kilometer. So that's a huge difference in terms of funding to maintain infrastructure and try and close the debt. So we need to certainly work on this and with all the help that we can get. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Okay, Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship. Just to clarify, the original discussion on this parks waterfront user needs was a memo from the director asking us to accept it. This is the actual motion. Yeah. And it's moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Henderson. Whereas Council has considered a memo from the Manager of Parks and the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture regarding the CO-16-21 Waterfront User Needs Assessment and Detailed Project Design Tender. Now therefore be it resolved that Council award the Waterfront User Needs Assessment and Detailed Project Design to Think Design, a firm that received the highest score in them at all of the town of Coburg's acceptance criteria at a cost of $74,925.
Okay, moved and seconded, and just for clarity, because I know sometimes the public gets a little bit confused because we just talked about this a few minutes ago, but what we're really doing early in the agenda is we receive the reports for information purposes that provide some of the detail, and now we're actually giving final approval to the recommendation in the reports. So that's why you see some things come on the agenda, twice in one night. Any discussion on this? We've had some discussion already. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the motion tonight is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Darling that whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Environmental Services Technician regarding the award of a contract for biosolids haulage for 2017-2018. Now therefore it be resolved that Council award the biosolids haulage contract to BioAg Services, the lowest bid, who met all the Town of Coburg acceptance requirements at a price of $11.50 per meter in the 2017 haulage season and $12 per meter for the 2018 haulage season.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? So I just like to take council back a few years, and because this is really a good news that we're signing a contract at a lower rate than we previously had. But also a few years ago we invested in a centrifuge, and a centrifuge is where we take the biosolids and we actually remove the water from it. And that centrifuge actually was so efficient at removing water that we have more solids and less water, which reduced the amount of haulage that we had to take away. So at that time, I think we were saving, that centrifuge saved us something in the area of $40,000 a year in reduced transportation costs, and now we have a contract that's even going to reduce the transportation costs on I think it's a square, cubic meter basis or whatever it is. So again, is another example of where we're creating some efficiencies in our operation, and I think it should be noted. That's why I just wanted to speak to it for a minute. Any other discussion? Councillor Sagan.
What happens to the water?
The water goes back. Well, Mr. Thrasher, we can't just pour it anywhere. The water goes back into the system.
Through you, Your Worship, this unit, this centrifuge unit that His Worship referred to just now, is located right in the sewage treatment plant. So the water that's taken out is directed right back into the sewage plant. Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Good question. Any other discussion? And all in favor? Carried. And now, Councillor McCarthy. Your first one for Protection Services.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'll place the motion on the floor, and it was moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Chief Building Official regarding a request for an exemption to sign bylaw number 008-2009, 4955 Elgin Street West. Now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the request by Linmac for an exemption to sign bylaw 008-2009 as amended to allow one, and bracket numerical 1, fascia sign be mounted at 2.34 meters above ground level, bracket lower than the required minimum 3 meters above ground level, at the property known municipally as 955 Elgin Street West, Coburg. We did discuss this last week at the Committee of the Whole, but because some people may be hearing this for the first time, I'd like to request through you, Your Worship, to Director McGlashan to explain why this is considered an acceptable.
Okay, Mr. McGlashan.
I'm sorry, Councillor McCarthy, could you repeat that?
Well, if I remember last week at Committee of the Whole, you were suggesting that even though I believe it was you, that even though this was lower than the required minimum 3 meters above ground level, that this was such an insignificant difference and didn't really interfere with the intent of the bylaw. And just if that's correct.
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor McCarthy, it was actually reported in the Chief Building Official's report that the minimum standard is 3 meters for a fascia sign from ground level. However, in this case, the design of the particular building on the north side of that face is such that they cannot actually install a sign to meet the 3 meter minimum. The report looked at all of our urban and landscape design guidelines, all of our criteria, looked at whether the sign would pose an obstruction for any passersby, and it was found to be a reasonable deviation from the standard in the sign bylaw, and that it would not adversely affect, say, the streetscape or the usability of any public or private space, and that it really, given the circumstances, it would not create a precedent as well. So on those bases, we felt that it was appropriate.
Okay. With that explanation, are there any other questions? Councillor Rowden?
As Your Worship, and I believe in the past we have given an exception to that bylaw for other reasons.
I know that I'll never bump my head on it. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried. And next, we're to bylaws, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. Your Worship and members of Council, there are 7 bylaws for presentation, namely, a bylaw to appoint members to various local boards and advisory committees in the town of Coburg, a bylaw to authorize the transfer of title to certain lands by the town of Coburg for the property located at 312 Darcy Street, Coburg, a bylaw to authorize the assumption of a public highway known as the Prince of Wales Boulevard, Coburg, West Park Subdivision Phase 3B, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with BioAg Services for the 2017-2018 haulage of biosolids, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation under the dedicated gas tax funds for the public transportation program, a bylaw to assume municipal services, infrastructure, and the linear park land in New Amherst subdivision, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 85-2003, accessory dwelling units, second units. And I move that first reading be given of these bylaws.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Burkett, all in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, I move that Council go into Committee of the Whole for the second reading of these bylaws.
Seconder. Councillor Burkett again, all in favor? Carried.
A bylaw to appoint members to various local boards and advisory committees in the town of Coburg. This was certainly discussed earlier in tonight's meeting with the additional councillor before us. I think it speaks for itself. If there are not any questions.
Any questions on the second reading? All in favor of the second reading? Carried. And Councillor Rowden, second reading in Public Works.
Your Worship, and a bylaw to authorize the transfer of title to certain lands by the town of Coburg for the property located at 312 Darcy Street in Coburg. And just a quick explanation of that, we was asked last week, and the street was closed many years ago, and property was turned over to the landowner, and it was never done by bylaw. It was April in 1951. So we're just correcting a parcel of land that was in mistake. It was.
Okay. Move for second
And
reading.
I move for second reading. I'm sorry.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor? Carried.
And then a bylaw to authorize the assumption of a public highway known as Prince of Wales Boulevard, Coburg, West Park Subdivision, Phase 3-2.
Okay. And this is a.
And I give this a second reading.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a road, a main road down through West Park Village that we have been looking after for a while, but I believe it just slipped through the cracks. Is that right, Mr. Thrasher? We never really did officially assume it. even though we've been servicing it.
That's correct, Your Worship. In fact, a few months ago, I presented a report to council recommending the assumption of some roads, including this one. So it was in the report. Unfortunately, it somehow was left off the bylaw, so we're really just cleaning up that paperwork.
Because I do recall that we had quite a discussion about which side the parking was going to be on, and we don't normally do that until it's been assumed by the town. So, all in favor of the second reading? Carried.
And Your Worship, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with BioAg Services for 2017-2018 haulage of the biosolids. And I give a second reading.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation on the dedicated gas tax funds for the public transportation program. And I give this second reading. And this is always a good news story because it's money we get from us.
Yes. Anytime we get money, it's a good news story. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And Your Worship, a bylaw to assume municipal services, infrastructure, and a linear park land in New Amherst subdivision. And I give this second reading, and if anyone gets a chance, it's a tremendous piece of property that also goes through the Van Dyke subdivision, and it's a very nice walking trail if anyone would like to test it out. They've got bridges and everything, and it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is. It's very nice walking.
And I give
through.
this second reading.
You can walk. You can start in West Park Village and go all the way to the end of New Amherst now.
And then you can walk to the lake if you want to.
Yeah. All in favor of the second reading? Carried. Councillor Burkett?
A bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 85-2003, accessory dwelling units, second units. I move this for second reading.
Okay. Any discussion on the second reading for accessory units? All in favor? It's carried.
That the committee rise.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, a bylaw to appoint members to various local boards and advisory committees in the town of Coburg. A bylaw to authorize the transfer title to certain lands by the town of Coburg for the property located at 312 Darcy Street, Coburg. A bylaw to authorize the assumption of a public highway known as the Prince of Wales Boulevard, Coburg, West Park Subdivision, Phase 3B. A bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with BioAg or Ag Services for the 2017-2018 haulage of biosolids. A bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation under the dedicated gas tax funds for the public transportation program. A bylaw to assume municipal services, infrastructure, and the linear park land at New Amherst subdivision. A bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 85-2003, accessory dwellings units, second units, have received both first and second readings without amendments, and I move third reading of these bylaws that they finally be passed and ordered signed by the mayor and municipal clerk with the corporate seal affixed.
Seconder? Councillor Burkett? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, there's one item of correspondence listed on the agenda this evening.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson?
Yes, this action recommended that the council receive the letter for information purposes, and unfortunately, it gives us due regard, but unfortunately, we did not receive any funding towards our 150 special week that was being aligned with our Coburg 150th committee.
Okay. Seconder? Councillor Sagan? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item of business are council coordinator announcements.
Okay, I do have a few items, and I'm going to start off with a good news item. So the RED funding has been reestablished in Ontario. RED is the Rural Economic Development, and it also covers downtown vitalization. So we will be putting in an application for funding to assist for our marketing initiatives for downtown Coburg. So that is good news. I'm thinking almost a year ago, Canadian Rosin purchased the former National Fasteners building at 711 Ontario Street, and they moved their entire operation into there and have done very well. They even had some extra space. So now with the extra space, they've leased out some commercial space to a commercial printing company, and so they are now located in that building and operating very, very successfully. However, they are having a problem with their internet service. They require a very heavy load, high speed, and broadband, so I will be visiting with them this week along with Lakefront Utilities to try and get some fiber into that building. The Northumberland Manufacturers Association, as we all know, Judy Selvig has been working for the Northumberland Manufacturing Association for almost 2 years now, and unfortunately she's been offered a job with Community Futures Development Corporation, and she's going to take on that role as a business consultant. So we will miss Judy with the Northumberland Manufacturing Association. However, as we move towards the Economic Development Hub, Community Futures Development Corporation will be part of that Economic Development Hub, as will Northumberland Manufacturing continue to be. The confectionery company that we have in Northam Industrial Park is getting very close to startup. And I have a meeting coming up with the Minister of Environmental and Climate Change, the Honorable Glenn Murray. That will take place next Tuesday, February the 7th. And finally, today, Tony Tilley, who is the president of Sir Sanford Fleming College, met with the deputy mayor and myself to give us an update on what Sir Sanford Fleming College is up to, and they are continuing to support the programs that they already have here in the town of Coburg, and they will be expanding a few more programs, but they we're not able to really divulge exactly what they are right now. They want to work a little further on them. So it's good news that they're going to at least maintain the presence and expand it as we know it today. So I think that bodes well for the future. Councillor Rowden.
Yeah, Your Worship, and I think maybe missed one that the foundation, I think, went in this past week for the new cookie factory on Ontario Street. I believe that they're on their way to get them going.
Yep. Very good. So that's my report. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine's very brief. First of all, I'd like to thank all members of council, certainly directors and all members of staff, very inclusive to Mr. Davies' department. I'd like to give a special accolades to Ms. Taylor. She was phenomenal through the process and certainly kept us moving forward. And I can't say enough. In terms of moving forward, we have council strategic plan session on February the 8th, starting here officially at 8:30. It will be led by our facilitator, Carolyn Kearns, who's been with us previously. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I would like to start my report off with formally congratulating Councillor Sagan on her appointment to council. I think her past experience will be a real benefit for the town of Coburg. So welcome aboard. Again, tonight, as I drove by the Frank, it was nice to see it being used even in this cold weather. Kids out bundled up in their snowsuits. Again, I think it's a great asset to the community, and to see being used so much is definitely nice. At our Coburg Community Center, the food and beverage improvements at the CCC are nearing completion. There's still work going on, but the canteen is now functioning. I was speaking with one of the gentlemen there this evening who has a company of his own and that does that kind of mechanical work, and he couldn't believe they got that completed as fast. He said, if you had hired me, I wouldn't have got it done that fast. So I think the gentleman doing the work did a great job. There's still some finishing touches, but it looks like it's going to really serve the purpose. The skate sharpening shop has been moved into its new location. We did receive some federal funding. I think there was an announcement last week I think it was $46,000 was received for the accessible washrooms. I read that while I was away on vacation, so I wasn't sure if I had my numbers right. That the washrooms will be going in where the indoor fish area, cleaning area is at the marina, and we will be replacing the fish cleaning station on the west side of the building. It will be an outdoor one, if I'm not mistaken. There has been some concern sent by some local fishermen, but we haven't forgot about them. Again, the curling, Ontario men's and women's curling, an amazing job of transition to take that from a hockey rink to a curling rink. When I first went in the other night, I couldn't believe it, and then I looked at that, oh, the glass is gone, oh, the nets are gone for the screens, and the transition, you would never know it was a hockey rink. They did a fantastic job, and I would like to congratulate the curling club, town staff, and the 250 volunteers that have made this event possible. You know, when we ask people to come out and volunteer, they had to literally turn people away, which is amazing. And I think it's a great thing. I hope people will come out and support it. There's still tickets available. And again, just a reminder, the RBC Cup that's coming is going to be as big and as good as this event here. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you. And next is Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I again, too, welcome Councillor Seguin. Look forward to working with you in the next 2 years. And a good news to the people on James Street. Our public information session for the James Street construction project has been scheduled for February the 16th. If everybody wants to mark their calendar here in the Citizens Forum from 6 to 8. And that's been an ongoing project that's been on the books now for quite a number of years, and I know that the residents will be looking forward to having that street brought up to curb and gutter, boulevard, and new pipes under the roads. And now that we've passed the budget, there's no excuse that it can't be done. The design and preparations for the tenders for those capital projects are Kerr Street, Hardin Street Bridge, and James Street will be going out fairly shortly to the public for comment. And our Christmas lights are going to be removed on February the 1st. Lucky this winter we haven't had much snow. We've had fires, you know, at our old barn, at the town barn over on King Street, and of course a lot of the equipment got pretty badly smoke damaged. And it's pretty hard to get smoke out of interior of a house, let alone out of the interior of a cab of a truck. So I know that the vehicles are being cleaned at this time, and they're still working with the insurance adjusters and replacement of the office equipment and the snowplow that was damaged. So I give our director a lot of credit for what he's been through, and I know that the employees are having a difficult time at trying to work with borrowed equipment and equipment that's not the same as they're used to every day, but thank God we didn't get much snow this year so far, so that at least that we're not asking our neighbors to really dig in and help us. And lastly on my list is being chair of Canarasca Conservation. Our annual general meeting is on February the 16th, the third Thursday of February, so all of council's invited if they would like to come, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. I would just also like to welcome our new councillor. Welcome. And only one other item, and that's just in regards to we obtained the proposals for the Tannery District Sustainable Master Plan. We got 5 submissions, which is quite good. So Glenn and myself and the rest of the reviewing team are going over them, and we'll hopefully be back within a couple weeks or so to give a report. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. And Councillor Seguin, I know that you're just new at this, but if there's anything you'd like to say make any opening remarks, now would be the time to do it.
Absolutely, Your Worship. Councillor McCarthy and I met for 4 hours on Saturday. We had tea, and we just basically discussed her entire portfolio. And she's gone on a train back to Toronto. That's how dedicated she is. But I wanted to thank her thank you for the great job she did in this role. And I know that I have big shoes to fill, but she'll be able to help me along the way. And this is a great portfolio, and I know I will really enjoy it. So thank you for your trust in giving it to me. Just a few comments. The tourism guide that the Department of Tourism just put out is a fabulous piece. Congratulate Erin Wakely for all of her hard work on that. It's 28 pages of full color, and it's they printed 25,000. So for those at home, grab a copy. I always keep several copies at home for my daughters, all in their 30s, and they bring them back to their Toronto friends, and of course it's available online as well at coburgtourism.ca. The 55 plus Ontario Winter Games is coming. It's February 21st to 23rd, and these are fun games. During my time as Mayor of Prescott, I get to give out some awards, and I gave some awards to the hockey team, and it's a lot of fun. There's no real pressure. These athletes are a little different than professional athletes, and they really do enjoy these senior winter games. So look forward to that. Canada 150, there's starting on the 1st of February, there's a photography contest. What Canada means to me, strong, proud, and free. And that's going to be kind of exciting. They're all 8 by 10, but they're all mounted, and it's always at the Northumberland Mall. But this year, there's that Canada theme. So it'll be interesting to see what people have come up with and how the community relates to them. And anyone that wants to know what's going on in this fabulous years of ours can go on coburg2017.com, and new events are being added daily, and there's a tremendous team in place to make that happen. Victoria Square Phase 4, work is continuing on this exciting project. I look forward to sitting on that committee. They're all ready to go once funding is found or is in place, and they didn't get any provincial or federal funding. But hopefully by next year, when this has been deferred, or whenever financing is in place, this can actually become a reality. And brick sales will likely begin this year to try and get that funding in place. Coburg BIA, new coordinator, Paige Montgomery, starts on the 6th of February. So I plan on going down and welcoming her. She sounds like a delightful young lady. Resident of Coburg, and she's worked in marketing positions. She's got her Bachelor of Applied Arts in Media Studies and Communications, so we'll probably have a lot in common, and we just welcome her and look forward to working with her. I know it's a tough job trying to have yes to all these masters up and down the street and to try and keep everybody happy, which of course we know never happens, but at least with her big smile and her young enthusiastic nature, I think it'll be, she'll be okay. Coburg Public Library, I can't say enough for how fabulous our library is in town. It's one of the first places we went when we moved here. We got our library cards, and we're there every week. I'm just thrilled to be on that board, and Deborah indicates that it's extremely well run board, and it's going to be fun to get to know them a little better. And they had a Canada 150 Coburg colors that they had on exhibit. It's over now, but it was just there for a couple days, the 25th and 26th of January. Upcoming events include their Green Screen Day on February 25th, where you can travel the world without leaving the library using green screen technology, which is how they do the weather reports. Those guys stand in front of those screens, and all of a sudden the maps show up. So it'll be kind of fun to see how that goes. And Patron Appreciation Day is February the 14th. Two last things. The Art Gallery of Northumberland Board current exhibit is Call to Action number 83. I haven't been there yet, but I do plan on going this week with 8 Indigenous and people and artists and 8 non-Indigenous artists for their quest for truth. So I'm not sure how the reaction has been to the exhibit, but it's on until March the 5th. And their annual fundraiser gala is on the 25th of March. Civic Awards, I know you've mentioned this previously, Your Worship. I'm excited to be going for the first time this year, and that's on April the 5th. And nominations are open until February the 17th. And finally, the Business Achievement Awards on the 24th of February. Tickets are on sale. And according to Director Huswick, there was 67 qualifying nominees in 9 categories. So it should be a wonderful night. And again, I really look forward to finding out what really does make this town a feel-good town, and talking to all the people around Coburg, which I absolutely love in the 2.5 years that I've been here. So thank you.
Well, okay, thank you. Councillor Seguin, so with so many people up at the community center right now, do we have a number of copies of the visitor guide up there for them to look at?
That I don't know, but I know Aaron's on holidays right now, so I will definitely check into that. That's an excellent point.
Okay,
because it's a beautiful book and it's easy to pick up. So.
It is. I love the cover.
Yes. Well, the cover is fabulous with our city hall and with the lake in the foreground, and apparently the police drones were used to take the pictures. So, yeah, it's cool.
Councillor Darling.
Yes, if I may add to that, I was at meeting with Director Huswick this morning, and I got my copy, and there are copies at the CCC available.
Oh, are there? Good.
Good. Okay. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and one thing I forgot to mention was that our public works have moved into Building 7 completely now, I believe. Our Parks Department maintenance staff, they're in there as well. The only thing we're missing is equipment. And once it's cleaned and ready to roll, we'll be all right. But and again, it's accessible by wheelchair. It's got great ramp. I was over on Friday to visit with some of the staff, and they showed me around a few of the offices. A beautiful spot, and I think we made the right decision at the right time and got a beautiful building out of this. And the public can drop in there, and they got a place to park. They're not going to be obstructing the work like the old yard was. You couldn't even get to the office there unless you tripped over something. So, anyways, I just thought I'd mention that.
Timing's everything, and I do. Mr. Thrasher, I understand there's going to be an open house tour for council at some point.
That's right, Your Worship. I know the CAO wants to have that, and when he comes back from vacation, we'll talk about scheduling that in the very near future.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Seguin.